Right. Now, I know you brought up the ideology of the transgenderism and stuff like that. Now, I mean, I have my thoughts on it, and I'm gonna be very careful with my words here. I think that, in my personal aspect on this is, if somebody wants to, who's a guy and born a man and has the DNA of a man, wants to go out and cut off his manhood, they should have their mind. They should have their mental status checked out. But I'm gonna take this a step further. The reason is, you got people like, who's the new Secretary of Health?
He's from our state.
Was it? I'm gonna call
Dr. Levine.
Roger Levine.
Okay. Dr. Levine. Yeah. Rachel. I don't know her Christian name. I don't know her birth name.
Right. Well, I'll just put it this way: when he's going out and telling people that it's okay for a 5-year-old or someone who's in kindergarten they have the consent, or should have the consent, to go through transition therapy, they've got a couple screws loose themselves, especially when they're trying to abuse and mutilate children.
Yeah. Well, there's studies on transgender that show that a large percentage of men, for example, men who it's usually teenagers that go through this identity crisis, that start to manifest these ideas that perhaps they're the wrong sex. And they did a study to show that with men, if they don't pursue the change sex, going through change of sex, taking estrogen, and going through the process of transitioning, if they don't pursue that into their adulthood, they are usually happy that they didn't pursue that. Quite often they become homosexual and just live their lives as homosexual men, but they are happier for the fact that they didn't pursue gender reassignment at a younger age. So it is something that I think that so it used to be that they would have to go through 2 years of therapy before going through any type of reassignment. I don't know if that's changed because there's been a normalization of the transgendered condition. So that might have been decreased. But before it was so normalized, and before Caitlyn Jenner, they had to go through 2 years of therapy before getting actual surgery. But during the time that they're going through the therapy, they're able to take hormonal treatments, estrogen or testosterone, based on their desire. Now, Dr. Levine, it's interesting that you would bring that doctor up, because we've had run-ins with this doctor in the mental health system, because that doctor, before she was Surgeon General, actually had a private practice where she would work on gender reassignment of teenagers. So we have people admitted to inpatient psychiatric care because you cannot want to change your gender and not have a mental health situation. No matter how accepting one can be, you have to understand that it's inevitable that it's a mental health situation, that they need some sort of therapy to make sure that this is the right decision. But in any case, we had a lot of people admitted that were going through transitioning, taking hormonal therapy under the care of Dr. Levine, and they weren't even 18. We had one as young as 12. So I'm not entirely fond of that particular individual because of that. I feel like it can be very damaging at such a young age to make these sorts of decisions. Now, that's my personal opinion. Unfortunately, I'm not in the minority, and as far as social culture is concerned, it's more and more normalized. But I think there's lasting effects when you start to influence someone's hormonal condition prior to them even going through puberty.
I completely agree with that because, okay, I mean, we all went through puberty at one point or another, you know, and, you know, looking at the stats, you know, they want to put out there that, you know, people who are not able to transition, who are gender confused, or, you know, that have a higher suicide or higher in depression, have a higher suicide rate. But in reality, those numbers still are almost equal to people who have transitioned. So I mean, it's one of those that transition does not help. It doesn't work. I mean, because you're still gonna have those same. It's built in your DNA for you to have, you know, of what you are. You know, whether you want to call yourself a pink purple dotted elephant, you know, you still are what you're born. And that's, like I said, that's my personal opinion on that. So,
well, and like I said, with this victimization culture, it makes it so that if anyone's experiencing transitioning like this, it's not their fault that they're having these mental health issues. It's because they're not being socially accepted. You know, it's not my fault, it's your fault, you know, that sort of thing. So they don't ever do the work that they need to do on themselves because they're so focused on blaming everyone around them. And so very little is resolved prior to going down this path. That's kind of irreversible and causing physical change. But even with so many other things in mental health, I think there's so little that's resolved. Everyone just wants to bury the issues that they're dealing with instead of working through them, because it's too much effort and too much self-awareness. That's just so much easier to take a pill and go on your acts of daily living without thinking about it and canceling all your future therapy appointments.